All right. What up? What up? We are back. Patreon only live stream. As always, if you guys are watching this back, you want access to this live stream, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange, link down below. Corey Van was the first one in here, week 3. Let's go. Let's get it. So we are going to start with the news of the day, kind of recapping the ins and outs because there's plenty of injuries to talk about. So let's play a little in or out. First of all, we know for a fact some of these guys are out. Mike Evans suspended with the altercation that he had with Marshawn Lattimore. Of course, it was complete BS because John Runyon was the guy that actually suspended him, whose son plays for the Green Bay Packers, who happens to be the week 3 opponent for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So I'm not going to call BS on that one, but I am a little bit bitter about that. Chris Godwin is out still with a hamstring injury. I saw Dr. Edwin Porras labeled his timeline as week 4 to 5. So I'm assuming that's, when he expects him to come back. Hunter Renfrow is also out with a concussion. He hasn't practiced all week. Then there's some middling names like Kadarius Toney doesn't look like he's going to play Monday night. Hasn't practiced today because Saturday is their last practice day, being that they play on Monday night. And then a number of other random guys that aren't going to play. But those were the main important fantasy names.
I've been thinking about this because I do have him in a couple leagues as well, but I want to know your thoughts as well. What are you doing with Kadarius Toney at this point? If you drafted him, are you stashing him? Are you cutting bait? Are you seeing what's up? Obviously it's dependent on, what maybe comes available on your waiver wire that's past this week. If Treylon Burks goes out and has a Garrett Wilson type of game, obviously you would drop Toney for Burks, for example. But what are you doing with Toney if there's no big waivers coming on this week?
I'd hold him as long as there's no one that I'm willing to pick up. But yeah, it's the second somebody big comes available, I'm fine cutting bait with him. I don't think he's a huge guy that needs to be stashed. It sounds like he doesn't give a shit, or whatever, the Giants coaching staff is soured on him, whatever the case is. And also he's dealing with injury too. So just a whole host of reasons why he's not going to be a great fantasy pick this year. I think we probably should have seen this coming a little bit more. I think we should have cooled down during the summer when they started talking about him in that way, that he wasn't practicing well and he wasn't, giving his best effort or whatever. We probably should have cooled down on him a little bit. I was never in the camp of draft him in the 6th, 7th round, but he was available in the 9th, 10th round on sleeper drafts. And I was totally cool taking him at that point in time, swing and a miss, whatever. A couple guys that are questionable. They're listed as questionable, but I'm personally concerned about them. And I do think some of these guys will end up missing because a lot of them are time decisions and stuff. So Josh Jacobs is the first one. He hasn't practiced in a couple of days with an illness. I don't know exactly what it is, but he didn't travel with the team, according to one report. So if anybody has an open bench spot that's listening to this right now, go stash Zamir White. You might be able to throw him into your flex spot as a top 36 back this week. It should be a relatively high scoring game, I'd imagine. So if you're in a pinch, I think Zamir White, if Jacobs is out, could definitely make some sense, but he isn't confirmed to be out. He is still listed questionable.
Yeah, no, that makes a ton of sense. Obviously, with Josh Jacobs, he hasn't really paid off too well from a fantasy perspective, but we want to trust this offense. We want to trust the goal line opportunity here. Raiders 2-point road favorites when I went through the game. And realistically, no matter who the starting running back is of this team, they're going to fix themselves into that top 30 to 35 range if it's Zamir White. And if Josh Jacobs is ready for this game, he's going to return to that, back end RB2 type of status with the potential to score a touchdown.
Yeah, totally agree. Then we have a couple other guys that are all game time decisions. So if Julio Jones hasn't really practiced much this week, listed as a game time decision, I personally don't think he's going to play based on what I've seen from Greg Allman and stuff, but he hasn't been, labeled out or whatever. I wouldn't be shocked if later today or tomorrow morning early on, we hear that he's going to be out for the game before it even kicks off. They do play at 4:25 though. So if we don't get any news before 1 p.m., I would say just err on the side of caution with Julio Jones. Probably don't put him in your lineup.
The question I have for you about that, has Cole Beasley been brought up from the practice squad yet, or is he still in the practice squad?
I believe he's expected to play, if I'm not mistaken. I haven't heard anybody say that he's not going to play or he's. I think I've heard people talk about the game and preview the game as if he's going to make his debut. So
most likely your top 3 receivers are going to be Gage, Beasley, and Perriman.
Yeah, I'd imagine so. Gage didn't practice yesterday either, so shit. There might be no Gage out there. Might be Scotty Miller, Perriman. We need Fournette and the defense to score points. If we don't score with the running game and with our defense, we're not going to be in a good shape. It could be I swear to God, the Bucs haven't had a punt return or a kickoff return touchdown in my entire time watching the team. It would be a great week for that to happen because we could definitely use the help offensively.
Which, oddly enough, when it comes to Tampa, right, in that matchup, if you would think, oh my God, Aaron Rodgers, Green Bay, because of your wide receiver situation, it should be a tough game. But on the Green Bay side, they have their own wide receiver question marks as well. With Sammy Watkins is out, Allen Lazard's been dealing with shit. that game is keep in mind, two of the greatest quarterbacks of our lifetime of
Unders a
period the
smash.
NFL history is an under smash at 41.5. Like
Yeah,
that
the
game's
under
going to be
is getting hammered
17-14.
by the sharps too, and I think the line opened at like 47, and it's just been
41. Yeah.
absolutely hammered down to the bottom. So
Yeah. Like I wouldn't be shocked again. Like your defense looks phenomenal. Obviously Green Bay's if I'm talking about Tampa Bay's defense probably being the best in the NFL right now, Green Bay's not too far behind too. That defense looks very, very suffocating. Hopefully, I mean, you guys don't really have a receiver like J Jeff to run wild on them at least.
yeah, facts. Okay, so two more guys that are listed as questionable that are game time decisions. James Conner, according to Cliff Kingsbury, is a game time decision, but ankles are finicky. They swell up, and sometimes players aren't able to go. So make sure Darrell Williams is owned in your league. Same goes for Benjamin if you got a bench spot. I'm not sure exactly if Connor is going to play. I lean towards he's probably going to try and go, but I don't think it's wild to say that he could be ruled out at the last minute. And same with Keenan Allen too, coming off of the hamstring injury. I believe he did not practice Friday, so I would expect him to be out personally. I don't think he's going to play.
I agree with Allen. I do think he's going to be out as well. In terms of Connor, instead of, like if he was fully healthy, like I think he's proven with his workload, with how we expect this offense to roll, what we saw from him to start the year, like he should be an every week top 12 type of running back. But given the ankle injury, maybe they limit his expectation in terms of overall opportunity share. Instead of top 12 expectations, think of him, if he suits up, as a top 20 to 24 type of back, I would say.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And then a couple guys that we'll just rapid fire these here in a second. A couple guys that are listed as questionable, but I think they're going to be just fine. George Kittle isn't on the injury report, so he is going to play 100%. Same goes for Michael Pittman. He's good to go. DeAndre Swift said earlier in the week that he was going to play. I don't think he's going to be limited, although we did hear a report last week before the game that he was going to be limited, so keep an eye on that situation. Leonard Fournette should be good to go. I don't think any problems with that. Same goes with Jerry Jeudy. He's also expected to play in this game. And then go ahead.
I would personally, adding on Jerry Jeudy, he may be expected to play in this game, but I do know that Dr. Edwin Porras was talking about the injury. He said the average timeline usually takes about a week to a week and a half. Obviously, he got injured just this past week, so he wouldn't be shocked if he's maybe at risk for re-injury or re-aggravating it, because he said like it's a finicky type of injury, especially dealing with that shoulder rib type of area, where if he gets a big hit, it might linger him in this game. So instead of fringe top 15 level expectations from what we saw from Jerry Jeudy in week 1, think of him as more of a wide receiver 2-3, I would say, because of the fact that if again he gets hit big in the game, cross over the middle, safety dimes him up in the middle of the field, we wouldn't be shocked if after the first quarter and a half, maybe he gets his snaps limited down the stretch in that game.
Yeah, that wouldn't shock me. And then two other guys that are both expected to make their season debuts coming off of ACL tears are Michael Gallup and J.K. Dobbins, who I think are both expected to play. Both of them practiced in full all week. And I'd imagine both guys not going to get a full allotment of snaps, but good to see them back in. So if you have both of those guys, and I actually have Gallup in one league and I have Dobbins in another, and I'm not going to play them, but I'm just going to monitor their usage and see how they look also too.
Yeah, but again, I'm still, a little bit cautious in terms of Gallup, because obviously, I mean, he had a late season ACL versus Dobbins basically tore it in the preseason. However, I mean, he's been a full participant in practice. He should be able to come back. And if he is fully healthy and ready to go, I wouldn't be shocked if we're talking about this upcoming Tuesday as him being the top waiver wire ad. And by the way, somebody I would drop Tony for if he does go off.
Oh, yeah, 100% for sure. Okay, so let's get into some of these questions here. I'm making sure I'm just like looking around because I'm making sure everybody's able to get the link. Let me know in the comments down below, guys, where you got the link from. Like, do you prefer it in the Patreon DMs? Do you prefer it on the post? Do you want it in your email? I sent it to everybody via email, but I know not everybody checks their email, so I like to send it in multiple locations so everybody can get in. But happy week 3, boys. What's going on? Ray Philly, if no Kamara, which I didn't mention Kamara, but he is expected to play also. So I think he should probably be good to go. But Darrell Henderson, Damian Harris, or Ingram for RB2. If Kamara is out, I would go with probably Henderson.
Yep, I agree with that. If Kamara is out, I would go with Henderson. Lost Trey, Tua, Brady, Wentz, Lawrence, or Cousins. So in terms of a start decision,
Kirk. I'm going Cousins there.
I didn't even see Cousins. I was about to say it might be gross, but Wentz, but no, I didn't see Cousins. I would go with Cousins. He's a top 8 quarterback for me this week against Detroit.
Yeah, that game 53-point over under. Sharps hammering the over. Like I'm all in on that. The Vikings bounce back this week. They looked really bad last week against Philly, but Philly is a much better defense than Detroit, and that game environment should be really, really friendly towards the passing game.
Yeah, and Ray, can you possibly get both of them in your lineup? They're both in my top 50 in overall wide receivers this week, but if you have to make that choice, I'll go with Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I would as well.
Scary Terry, Mooney, or Woods, half PPR dynasty. If this is dynasty, I'm going to Scary Terry pretty easily there.
Yeah, I think I think it's a start sit question. Regardless, I
Oh,
don't think it's like who would you
Terry McLaurin.
rather in dynasty, but I think the answer is Terry in both cases.
It's 7-0 Wolverines, by the way.
Nice.
Is Connor still game time decision, or would you make an offer for him?
I wouldn't personally. Connor's been a
Yeah.
guy that we weren't really in on preseason for this reason. I think he's shown, like, last year he was the healthiest he's ever been, and not that you want to fade a guy for health reasons when there's, like, you know, aside
just
from, you know, the stuff
he's
that he's
also
dealt
got
with in college and stuff. It was hard for me to get on board with James Conner. Now that he's already dealing with something, I'm probably not going to be trying to low on him.
I will say from his usage, I'm a lot more intrigued than I was going into the season, because I mean, when he was healthy, he looked like that workhorse back. Maybe that could be a contributing cause to that ankle injury. But what we kind of have been echoing with in terms of Connor is basically he is not like, you know, the superstar star level talent where if he gets hurt, maybe he's not at risk of losing his job. Because with James Conner, like if Darrell Williams and Eno Benjamin go out there and show well if he's out in this game, I wouldn't be shocked if he does lose a little bit out of that opportunity share. It's not like a case where if Joe Mixon misses a game, like Samaje Perine and Chris Evans won't take a lot of that opportunity for the long term for the rest of the season. But with James Conner, he's a limited talent. He's volatile in terms of injuries, especially in the past, especially lingering stuff that we have seen from college in general. So he is a little bit worrying. I would be in play where if James Conner does come back this week and has a good week, I'd be looking to try to sell high and capitalize on the perceived top 12 to 14 level market value he is at running back right now.
Yeah, agreed. I think that's where I'm at on Connor as well.
Yeah.
I traded away Najee Harris in the offseason for Breece Hall in a 2023 first after Danny's conviction, looking pretty sweet right now. Yeah, I mean, Breece Hall is not going to give you nearly what Najee Harris is going to give you, and Najee Harris himself is not going to give you what Najee Harris was expected to give you coming into the season. But yeah, the value accumulation side of that is very easily on the side that you got for sure.
And then if we're talking about pure upside, I think, you know, maybe week 7 on, we do see Breece evolve into that type of role, because he hasn't gotten obviously the opportunity we've wanted to start the year, but he's looked good when he's gotten his opportunity. They invested very high capital in him. And I think I've said this numerous times, even to start the season and the offseason, but coaching staffs evolve with their rookies differently. So whereas, you know, maybe Pittsburgh will throw George Pickens out there as a starting X or starting Z week 1, a team may not be willing to let their young receiver get that full snap share week 1, like Pittsburgh, for example. I mean, Garrett Wilson's a prime example. 49% of the routes, 49% snaps, 61% snaps in his first 2 games, and yet it's still commanded 22 targets. By week 4, this guy should be an every week, every down starter on the outside, opposite of Elijah Moore, but he is not getting the snap share that his production would indicate right now, which is terrifying, thinking what his upside could be if he does get that full snap share.
Yeah, agreed.
Same thing with Traylon Burks, by the way.
Yeah, for sure. So one quarterback, we got no Trey Lance, no Zach Wilson. My poor options are Flacco versus, let me pull up the matchups here. So we got Joe Flacco versus the Bengals. We have Geno Smith versus the Falcons. We have Baker Mayfield versus the Saints. So I'm definitely not going Mayfield against that defense. I think my options are between Flacco and Geno Smith. And I think I'd honestly probably go Geno Smith over Flacco.
You know what? I mean, it's tough because, I mean, the Jets offense as a whole has looked a lot better than the Seahawks have. I mean, for reference, the Jets this past week scored 31 points. Seattle scored 24 on the season. So it's close because, I mean, obviously you're talking about volatile backup type of quarterbacks, but I might actually lean Flacco here, honestly.
Yeah, I think it's a toss-up. I have them like really back-to-back at the bottom of my 20s in my rankings, but I think I like Geno against the Falcons here. It's at home.
I don't mind it.
They got a worse defense. I think the Bengals defense is better than the Falcons defense that they're going up against. So I'll take Geno Smith slightly, and he looked, you know, pretty good in the week 1 game, and he paid off probably if people were streaming him at that point, which I hope nobody was, but definitely possible that people might need a guy like him with some of the QB injuries we've had. So let's go week 3, Henderson or Pollard, half PPR. I have these guys pretty close, but I do have Pollard a little bit higher. I really like the Cowboys are going to use their running game this week against the Giants. The Giants were really bad against the run so far this season. They've been one of the worst teams in the league against the run, and I think Zeke and Pollard will probably take over this game for the Cowboys.
Yeah, they are relatively close. They're both in that like early to late wide running back 3 type of range where they're probably occupying that. What I'll check my rankings in a second, but probably in that RB 25 to 32 type of range for both of
I have
them. So
Pollard at 30 and Darrell Henderson at 34. So yeah, I
makes
have
sense.
Pollard a bit higher, so I would go with him. And
Uh,
PPR too, I think we saw Pollard get more involved in the passing game last week. I don't know if that's going to continue 24% target share every game, but I do think that they could use him to the tune that they used him last week against the Giants. And he had 15 touches and like 7 of them were targets.
yeah, I just checked my rankings. I have Pollard at 29, Henderson at 30, so we're pretty much close there.
Yeah.
1 point tight end premium, half PPR, wide receiver, running back, flex headache question. Elijah Moore, Keenan Allen, Logan Thomas, and Dawson Knox. Give me Elijah Moore pretty easily there. Keenan Allen, obviously, we expect to be out with that hamstring injury.
If he
And
plays, he's in your lineup, but I do think
yeah,
he will be out.
agreed. When it comes to Elijah Moore, I mean, he's gotten the full route participation. He's the leading route in terms of on that team at wide receiver, routes participated. So the target share hasn't been there comparative to last year, but I mean, he's still uber talented type of player. Matt Harmon actually charted his first 2 games and basically said like nothing is wrong with how he's playing. He's separating at a high level. The targets just haven't come in yet. And I do expect that to, right his wrong from a Flacco standpoint in the next couple of weeks. Because I mean, Elijah Moore needs the ball if that team wants to win games.
Yeah, agreed. I think I'm on the same page there with Elijah Moore. And he also says wide receiver RB flex headache. Does that mean you can start 2 of these guys?
Uh,
If
let
you
us
can
know, Jay.
start another guy, I'm going Dawson Knox in the flex because I don't think Keenan Allen's going to play. But if you can start another player, hopefully Keenan Allen's in there for you. But if not, I would go Dawson Knox.
Tampa or Dallas D. That given I feel weird saying this because I mean, like, you don't want to go against Aaron Rodgers, but this is a really close question. Because I think
Yeah,
from the Dallas perspective, I think they're going to get a ton of pressure on Daniel Jones this week. That front has looked phenomenal. Michael Parsons has been the single highest graded edge rusher on PFF thus far. So I think there could be a scenario where if you're pressuring Daniel Jones almost any snap or every snap, we know how Daniel Jones is from a volatility standpoint, being able to turn the ball over. So I would slightly lean Dallas because I have more faith that Aaron Rodgers is not going to frazzle under pressure like Daniel Jones would. But I mean, Tampa has looked so good; it's tough to go against them.
we've also had Aaron Rodgers' number in the past too. I
Fair.
would go simply by the fact that they're at home and Dallas is on the road, but
That's fair.
they're both top 5, top 6 defenses
Yeah.
for me every week, so I'm cool with that. And I do love the under in both games. So yeah, I think
Agreed.
the point wise, it's not going to be huge. Did y'all mention Kamara? My live didn't kick in until we did actually not mention Kamara, but yeah, it looks like he's going to be back with the rib injury. Hopefully, I need him. Dr. Edwin Porras outlined his timeline as like a 2 to 3 week injury. It's now been 2.5 weeks since he suffered it, so hopefully he's good to go. What are we doing with Elijah Moore this week in my flex?
Put him in the flex.
I think that's exactly where he should be.
Yep.
He's a top 36 wide receiver for me. He's not a guy that I'm starting over his teammate Garrett Wilson, but I do think he is still a top 36 guy for me.
Spicy, eh? You would start Garrett Wilson over Elijah Moore this week?
I would, yeah. I think with
Yeah.
the way that Wilson played last week, he's probably going to be closer to like 80-85% of the routes this week. And what he's shown commanding targets, I'm not going to deny it right now. Like, as much as I love Elijah Moore, we could be witnessing, the next great rookie wide receiver.
Maybe. I got Elijah at 30 and Garrett Wilson at 33 right now. So both, in that wide receiver 3 type of discussion. But I will again, it might bite me in the ass with how good Garrett Wilson's been playing, but I'll trust the role and the higher percentage of going off rather than the sheer efficiency that Garrett Wilson has shown thus far. So again, might bite me off. Garrett Wilson's looked phenomenal.
It's funny because Chan actually asked the exact question right after. So I would go Garrett Wilson. I think I'm going to trust
Elijah.
the volume that I saw from him. I think the coaching staff isn't going to like take him off the field now that he's been really productive.
No.
I think if anything, the opposite is likely to happen. His routes went up last week from week 1. I think his routes will go up again this week towards the like 80-85% range. And this is a game that the Jets are going to have to score points because I think the Bengals are pissed, and I think they're going to score a lot of points on the Jets defense. Because the one thing that the Bengals haven't looked good in the first 2 games, but the one thing we can say is they played the TJ Watt led Steelers defense in the first game, and they played the Cowboys defense in the second game, which when Watt's on the field, those could be two of the best
Yeah.
defenses in the league. So the Jets defense is not nearly the level of talent as those other guys. Like as an overall team with the quarterback injuries and the way that both of those opposing offenses look, you can make the discussion that the Jets, Cowboys, and Steelers are like on par right now, but defensive wise, it's not close.
You know, it's funny, because people are pointing to the fact that I know I have to make everything about Dallas, but basically this past week, people are like, well, Trayvon Diggs had a bad grade. He gave up 65 yards. It's like, yeah, when you get targeted 9 times against the Bengals and you allow basically 7 yards per target against that receiver core, I don't care what the yardage was. That's a fucking really good game from a corner.
Yeah, no, they had a really good game. The Cowboys defense is not to be messed with. They're gonna if the Cowboys get back to like 500 when Dak comes back, they're gonna have a legit chance to make a run this year. Jared's as last year's champ and a contender with 1-1 with my current quarterback situation. Do I just wait for Zach Wilson or do I try and trade Trey Lance for someone like Kirk Cousins? No, don't do in a dynasty league. I would not. I know you're a contender and it sucks. But you have like all these, I mean, like you listed your options like Geno Smith, Baker Mayfield, Joe Flacco types. I think you just get by with those guys until Zach Wilson comes back.
The only way I would entertain this type of move is if you're getting first round equity back. So, for example, I'm in a dynasty league and I have Trey Lance and I was kind of left holding the bag as well. The type of move that I was offering was Lance and what I project to be a late 2 for Derek Carr in a first round pick. And again, it sucks losing that, foundational type of quarterback when he's healthy. But at the same time, it's like, if you're going to make that new move, you need quarterback equity back and you also need first round equity back to try to right some of your losses there.
Yeah, agreed. I've sent out some offers for Trey Lance, and it seems like in most of my leagues, people are still holding on to him. So I think you'd be selling really low if you just swapped him 1-for-1 for Kirk Cousins. It's a one quarterback league. It is a one quarterback league, though. It is not super flex. So that actually changes things a little bit, I would say.
Oh, okay. But, yeah, you're fine then.
Yeah, in a one quarterback league, man, I would just get by until Zach Wilson comes back. Personally, I don't think Kirk Cousins is like if this was Trey Lance for Russell Wilson, maybe I might be more inclined to make a move like that. Somebody that might move the needle a little bit more from like a one quarterback league standpoint. But I think I would probably just hold Lance for the time being.
By the way, I'll quickly add in terms of Elijah Moore versus Garrett Wilson, and then we'll get back to the questions, of course. But when Matt Harmon actually wrote it up, he basically said the reason why the targets haven't really been coming for Elijah Moore.
Did he chart Elijah Moore?
He charted both of them. He said so far Elijah Moore's been 79th percentile against man, 91st percentile against press, despite playing basically all of his snaps out of X receiver, all of the snaps. And he's basically said, like, because he's playing the majority of his snaps, for the most part, all of the snaps at X receiver, the attention that he's been receiving from defenses and his actual role hasn't exactly been valuable for fantasy. But he does think now that Garrett Wilson proved that, hey, first 2 games, he's looked that good. He does expect the coverage to start rolling over a little bit towards Garrett Wilson, which will help Elijah Moore get free from a fantasy football perspective. So it's been tough. Defenses have looked at it like, Elijah Moore's that dude. We're going to roll pressure. We're going to roll coverage over to him. And now that they have a decent threat on the outside to accompany him with Garrett Wilson, we should be seeing, maybe them swap big games rather than Garrett Wilson get all the love right now.
Yeah. He said one of my biggest takeaways and the primary factor that's caused me to close the gap between Wilson and Moore this year is that Moore is playing the higher degree of difficulty role is what he has here. So yeah, that makes sense. Jeff, I believe he rephrased his question. He says, my first question was supposed to be Hollywood, AJ Dillon, or Garrett Wilson is what he has here. So Hollywood, AJ Dillon, not AJ Brown or Garrett Wilson.
I would go with Hollywood there.
Yeah, I would go with Hollywood. He said League 2, Mooney, Smith, or Dotson at wide receiver 3. I think I'm going Devontae there out of those options.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well.
But Dotson and him are pretty close. I'm not really going to... Until Justin Fields throws more than like 15 passes in a game, I think Darnell Mooney's got to stay on your bench.
As talented as Dotson is, and I do believe, and as good as he's been thus far, it is a little bit slightly concerning that his role in terms of an 11% target share, the worst out of the top 3 Washington receivers, which oddly enough, I mean, we got Curtis Samuel at a 23% target share to start the year, and he was the consensus wide receiver 3. And I mean, with Terry McLaurin, we do expect that target share to go back to that, 20, 22, 23 type of percent mark. So I am a little bit concerned that maybe we're getting, 15% target share for Dotson, and you can currently flip him for wide receiver 30 type of value. And I don't think, like, for example, right now, you could probably flip Dotson for Elijah Moore, and I would take Elijah Moore.
Oh, yeah, I would as well. I think you could easily make that move.
Yeah.
Well, I actually sold. I didn't tell you. I don't think I told you about this trade, but I sold on Jahan Dotson, and not that I don't think Jahan Dotson is a great player. Yeah. So I sold. So kind of like a backstory. My league is really obsessed. Like they're really against Dalvin Cook, right? Because I talked about it all summer. They don't like Dalvin Cook because I didn't like Dalvin Cook. They all watch my videos and shit. And I think it's easier for me to sell Dalvin Cook whenever he has his big game with Madison attached to him. So I sold Jahan Dotson and DJ Moore for Chris Godwin and Alexander Madison is what I did. And I'm, in a pretty good spot. I think I can get by until Godwin comes back. Like I said, Edwin Porras expects him back week 4, week 5 type of area. So I think in the long run, for one, I don't know if anybody else has noticed this. I'm sure you have if you have Christian McCaffrey or if you have DJ Moore.
Yeah,
I don't want to watch the Carolina Panthers offense. That's another part of my fantasy experience. I just don't want to watch this team. They're a fucking dumpster fire. So I was like, get me out of DJ Moore before this team starts to crash and burn, because I think it's going downhill fast. So I wanted to attach myself to a much better offense, and I think I did that with Godwin. I can sacrifice, a week or two of production. I have good depth on my roster right now, so I'm okay with that. Plus, I get Madison, who, should the time come, I am trying to make a subsequent move that if Dalvin Cook has a big game, I can sell him with Madison attached to get to Austin Eckler, to Saquon Barkley, or to DeAndre Swift, or whatever running back that I'm able to go after. 1-for-1 is what I'm trying to do with that move. So hopefully that pays off for me. But it's possible that these guys just hold a vendetta against Dalvin Cook, and at least it helps me sleep at night knowing I have Alexander Madison, I guess.
Yeah, I guess
he's like the one guy I'm okay if anybody's like, I will hold my handcuff the whole year. Like he's like the one running back, because we know he's 100% the handcuff, right? Because a lot of the times people are like, oh, I'm going to hold Jalen Warren with Najee Harris. I'm going to hold questionable, like maybe they're the handcuff, maybe they're not the handcuff type of guys on their bench the whole year, and then their starter goes down and they're not getting 100% of the workload. We know if Cook goes down, Madison is that dude.
I have a better plan, though. You hold Madison, you get rid of Cook.
I would love to do that, but I guarantee whoever I trade Cook to is going to want Madison also, which is why I did the trade. That's just me understanding my own league dynamic. And it's not the way I would operate in other leagues, like a experts league. I don't think that's how I would need to operate, but I know that's how my league operates.
Fair. I actually got a fun one for you, right? So my team, 2-0, first place in my home league. I've scored like 40 more points than like anybody else in the league thus far. And somebody who was in like a 1-1 pinch, but the team wasn't scoring points, they dropped Sky Moore. I picked up Sky Moore. I don't need the production right now, but we've heard raving reports from the Chiefs. Eric Bieniemy wants to get him more involved. I think he's their most talented receiver. So we could be talking about Sky Moore within a couple weeks, where if he sees his route participation goes up to an acceptable level, like he could be this number one receiver on the Chiefs, because I don't think Juju has done anything in these first couple games to prove that he's like by far this best talent. And Sky Moore, second round pick, great prospect. Maybe he's this year's Elijah Moore, where week 6 to like 12, for example, he's a 15-point per game type of score in the Chiefs offense.
Or better, he's like a Monra down the stretch, which, I mean, in that offense, he definitely could be. Especially, I think the best thing that could happen to Sky Moore is somebody ahead of him gets injured. It sucks that he can't just like outright win the job, but if MVS were to go down for a couple games, or if Juju went down for a couple games, I think Sky Moore would probably be thrust into a role that he would thrive in, because he's looked good when he's been on the field. It's just a matter of getting the route participation. So yeah, make sure if you want to make some trades right now and Sky Moore's on somebody's bench, just use him as a throw-in, man. Like just to make, if it's like a 2-for-2 trade and you're like, I don't think this is a great move for me, it's like kind of a lateral move, just throw Sky Moore at the end of the other guy's trade. He'll probably be like, all right, I'll give you Sky Moore, whatever. I don't give a shit. And he could be a guy that helps you win your league down the stretch. So start one PPR, Metcalf, Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, or Devontae Smith.
I have DK the highest here.
Yeah, I do as well. Maybe I'm gonna be like caught, left out in the cold with Curtis Samuel, but I just can't. I can't buy in yet. Like I keep ranking him way lower than ECR has him. Like I know he's getting targets, but like number one, it's the Philly secondary, and I think the Commanders have played some Mickey Mouse secondaries so far, and they haven't played one like this. And two, I don't trust Curtis Samuel to be consistently getting targets every single week.
Where do you have him ranked, Curtis Samuel, right now?
I have him at 33.
I'm at 31. Okay, so I thought I was like way higher on him than you. No, I like, especially in a PPR, I think he's going to be valuable. Again, we've seen the target share thus far. However, I mean, we know like in the long run, let's be honest, Terry McLaurin is not going to get half the target share of Curtis Samuel once the season ends.
Right.
So if we're expecting Terry McLaurin to go back to that, 20 to 25% target share area, we expect Dotson, the 16th overall pick, who's looked phenomenal to start the year, leads his team in routes, to go up from the 11% target share. Where does that leave Curtis Samuel? I'm not too sure. He is more likely a player I'm going to be using for a transition up. So Curtis Samuel plus a piece to go out for a stud locked and loaded receiver that maybe like for you might be able to do Curtis Samuel and a small plus for somebody who's panicking on CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, totally. So Jeff, we go to his question here. What tier running back would you consider the cutoff of trying to trade for Brees?
Top 4.
So I think he means in redraft, if I'm not mistaken. He could be talking dynasty. I don't know. Let us know if you're talking redraft or dynasty there, Jeff. In dynasty, yeah, Danny just said it. Top 4 running backs are the ones that are the cutoff. But in redraft, like, would you flip right now any of these like middling RB2 types like Clyde Edwards-Helaire, James Robinson?
Yes.
Any of those type of guys? His own teammate, Michael Carter,
Gibson. Yeah. All of them.
Gibson. You trade Gibson for Brees right now?
I would.
Yeah.
But Brian Robinson's
I think you could
coming
probably
back.
get Brees plus for Gibson too.
Yeah, and that would be huge because, I mean, realistically, we've seen the talent already from Brees. It just needs to be met with opportunity, which I don't think the coaching staff is dumb in realizing that, yeah, Michael Carter's a fine satellite back, and he could be.
I think you're being too optimistic on that, personally.
I don't think so,
an injury to fully take over that backfield.
See, I disagree because the way I kind of view Michael Carter as like a Nyheim Hines plus. That's how I view him in terms of this offense.
It doesn't matter how we view him. It matters how they view him.
I get that. But I do think it's going to be righted by the end of the day.
It maybe, but I'm more so leaning on the side of like Brees being like a very high upside, like handcuff with standalone value for right now. And it's possible he wins
for right
the job,
now,
though, right? But I don't think it's going to just happen randomly. We're going to be like 1 week, he's just like a 70% opportunity share guy. It's possible, but I think it's more likely that if Carter misses a game or two here and there, then Brees takes over the starting job and doesn't give it back.
Maybe. I don't know. I think like it'll be righted soon enough.
Yeah. So is Keontae Ingram, hook 'em horns, not showing anything? I thought he'd get Benjamin touches. I doubt it. I doubt he's going to get on the field very much. Like if James Conner was out, maybe they mix him in a little bit more, but I don't think Keontae Ingram's going to do much of anything until he's a guy, stash him on your taxi squad in dynasty leagues, but don't worry about him from a redraft perspective unless we get a decimation of injuries in the Cardinals backfield.
And it sucks. I think he's a better player than Eno Benjamin, but I mean, at the end of the day, they're going to trust the veteran. They're going to get him in there. Like Eno's looked fine when he's been in. So I don't really see, a possibility that they could change that anytime soon. In the Superflex Dynasty League, I had Herbert, Lamar, Dak, and Zach Wilson in my quarterback room. So I traded Dak, Christian Kirk in a late second for an early first and a mid first. Did I sell too low on Dak? Listen, I love Dak Prescott, but I think this is a more than adequate type of deal. I mean, realistically, I love Dak, but the difference between, from a dynasty market value standpoint, him and, the top selected quarterback in this year's draft is like, I would rather the mid first handily over Kirk in the late 2. So then like the difference between Dak and like CJ Stroud or Bryce Young from that point, like
or
realistically
maybe Bijan too.
Yeah. Like realistically from a market standpoint, Dak's going to be probably an early second round type of startup pick this time next year.
I don't think he'll even be that high, to be honest. I think he'll be more so in the Dak or in the Russell Wilson Stafford range of this past year, where he's more of a late second type of guy. I think that's where he's going to end up being. I'm not saying that's where I'm going to rank him. I think that's where his consensus is going to end up being.
So let me ask you, if, for example, the Seahawks get the first overall pick this year, and they take Bryce Young, not what you would rank, not what you would take, but who do you think the market's going to have higher at that point? Bryce Young on the Seahawks? I think they would
rather have Bryce than Prescott.
Which is like interesting because
I think I also would rather have Bryce than Prescott if he goes first overall to the Seahawks also.
It's fair.
But yeah, like, age, I mean, right? You're talking about a guy, he's going to be a 30-year-old quarterback, so he's not a young quarterback anymore. We kind of think of him still as a young quarterback, but he was an older prospect and stuff, so it's an interesting discussion for sure, but I do think, especially given your quarterback room, you have Zach Wilson in the wings, you have Herbert and Lamar already. You didn't even really need Prescott, so I'm totally cool making that move.
Yeah. Oh, and I guess like in his perspective, I mean, yeah, if that ends up getting you Bijan Robinson, and then say the mid first gets you Sean Tucker or whatever your top receiver is at that point, like it's fucking sick. Like
speaking of, I talked about in the takeaways video, we need to see some production from this receiver class, man.
Yes,
they're making me nervous right now. Jordan Addison's gonna end up being my wide receiver 1 pretty quick if JSN and Boute's doing nothing for starters. Same with Quentin Johnson. They have not done anything so far. It's pretty much just and I saw a mock with Marvin Mims in the first round the other day, so I was like, okay, interesting.
Yeah, like Marvin Mims has been like absolutely dominant thus far, but he's also like a 5'9", 170-pound receiver.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to be the Dotson of this class, I guess.
Good, but that's what I'm saying. Like, it's like as good as he can be and as productive as he'll be, he won't get to like the Treylon Burks, Drake
No.
London, Garrett Wilson level hype
Well,
because
Addison's going to have an uphill battle too because of his size. So,
that's fair.
but I think we could be getting to a point where Addison's going to be undeniable. Where if he has 2 years of like Biletnikoff caliber production, like we're not going to be doing this seriously, right? We're not going to be like he's too small.
Oh,
Like I don't give a shit at that point when he's producing at that level.
Marvin Mims is bigger than I thought he was. He's 5'11", 185, so that's not actually that bad. Never mind.
No, that's like Garrett Wilson size.
Yeah.
So Hines or
Hines
Hines or
Nyheim
Walker.
Hines.
Yeah, give me Nyheim Hines this week. I can't trust Walker yet.
Give me Elijah Moore over Jahan Dotson.
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood, A-Rob, or Pollard in the flex. Give me Hollywood there, Ray.
Yeah, pretty easily there, Hollywood.
Agreed. Oh, Maryland's running back just broke a couple tackles.
That. So if Keenan Allen plays, you say plug him in over Elijah Moore. Yeah, I would play him over Elijah Moore, assuming he's not limited in any way.
For the time being, yes, Carter over Hall.
Yeah, Carter over Hall, 100%.
Half PPR running back room is nasty. Pick 2 out of Singletary versus Miami, McKissick versus Philly, or Eno versus the Rams. Singletary's for sure.
Singletary's the easy first one, and I think I'm going McKissick for sure. Even if Connor was out, I think I would still go McKissick, to be honest.
Agreed there. Zeke has a good week. Should I just sell high? Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. This could be a big sell high Zeke week. I said that on the running back starts and sits videos that I think Zeke will probably have a good game this week against the Giants defense that hasn't been very good on the interior. I think Leonard Williams is out right now too. So Ezekiel Elliott's probably going to get into the end zone maybe once or twice, have a relatively efficient day if I had to imagine, and he's a good sell high candidate after this week.
Bush, maybe I'm biased, and maybe, again, this could bite me in the ass, but again, it's probably biased, but I just don't really see a scenario where Dallas is in a negative game script in this game. Like, I think it's going to be the Zeke and Paul show.
2-0 Giants, man. Put some respect on them.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen how the Titans and the Panthers have looked.
Yeah, man. Oof.
Man. Komet's killing me. Likely may be the start this week. Don't know if you remember, but someone told me he was a sleeper tight end. Your thoughts? I'm not starting Komet until I see this Bears offense actually do anything.
Does he mean likely may get the start as in Isaiah likely, or as in Komet might get the start for your lineup?
I thought you meant.
I think that's what he means. Komet. I just thought of it because of Isaiah likely, but I think he's just still talking about Komet. I would say
I would start somebody else if you have anybody worth a damn, to be honest. Any top 15 type of tight end, I'm starting over Komet.
Yeah, his offense where do I have? Let me see where I have Komet ranked. To be fair, they are playing another awful offense in the Houston Texans with an awful defense. But
Cole Komet's my tight end 21.
Komet at 23. I would rather start. David Njoku who already played and had a great game. Hunter Henry, Robert Tonyan, Mike Gesicki, like Hayden Hurst, Irv Smith, Logan Thomas, Evan Ingram, Dawson Knox, Gerald Everett. Like, I would rather start all those guys over Cole Komet. Like, if your decision is Cole Komet versus like Austin Hooper, Noah Fant, Jawan Johnson, Taysom Hill, then sure, go with Cole Komet. But I think he's mid to low end tight end too this week.
Corey, he just said it was Isaiah likely. Isaiah likely isn't getting the route participation to be worth that decision.
Yeah, maybe he'll catch some lucky passes, but you're never gonna be able to predict when to start the guy. He's right now just kind of like a tight end handcuff for Mark Andrews.
Yep.
What kind of pick would you send for Sky in Dynasty? I'm not sending a 1 for him.
Second in a bet. Yeah. You don't need to buy him for a 1, so why would you? Realistically, somebody might be panicking about the role, might think, Juju Smith-Schuster is the guy there, and basically at that point, you could probably get Sky for. Do you think as gross as it sounds?
I would send a 2 in a Josh Palmer type.
I was gonna say a 2 in Jarvis Landry. Do you think somebody would take that?
Veteran, or a young guy like Palmer that somebody might talk themselves, like a KJ Osborne or a Josh Palmer or something like that. And a 2 is probably what I would send out for Sky. That probably maybe the person's like, I spent the 107 on them. I'm not doing that. But that's the most I'd be willing. I'm not giving up a late first for him.
Agreed. It's partial dynasty. Keep 10, draft 10. My running backs on my roster: Eckler, Kamara, Montgomery, and Dillon. I would definitely try to see what you can get for Montgomery after he blows up Houston this week.
Yeah, he's probably going to have a big game. His role is exactly what it was last year, though. That is encouraging. If you for whatever reason, if you drafted Montgomery or maybe traded for him or something, his role is more what it was last year and not like the murmurs we heard that Khalil Herbert was going to be more involved. So that's definitely encouraging for people who do have Montgomery. And I definitely got some shares of him because in best ball drafts, he was falling to the 8th round sometimes. So I was like, I'll grab him here. Pick 2, Sutton, Thomas, Mike Williams. Yeah, give me the
I,
first 2. Oh,
I was gonna
actually,
say I
with
don't want
Keenan
to sit
Allen
Mike
out, man,
Williams,
I think
but
I'm gonna sit Sutton there.
I think I'm still sitting Mike Will. It's
I would
tough
sit
because
if Keenan
if
Allen does not play, I'm sitting Sutton
if
100%.
Judy was out, like I would take Sutton
Judy's
with
expected
Judy
to
out.
play, so I'm expecting Judy to play.
Okay, if you want to use that as a tiebreaker, then I don't mind going Williams. But if they were both expected out, like if Sutton was the one on that offense, and if Mike Williams was the one on the Chargers,
I would
I would
still take
slightly
Mike
lean.
Williams. The Chargers, I trust them way more than the Broncos right now.
Fair, fair.
Yeah.
Dak not. Uh, don't worry, we don't like real life. Dak's not concerning. Corey, you're fine.
Yeah, I mean, it was one game against, or
Yeah.
half a game really, against potentially the best defense in the league.
Not to mention, Gallup wasn't playing in that game. Rookie on the
It's
offensive
week 1.
line.
It was week 1 also, and the week ones.
Lost our starting left guard in the first quarter. Like there was a lot of shit going on with that Dallas offense. Yes, they looked awful, but again, Tampa's phenomenal as we've seen. And again, look, Dennis Houston, fucking Noah Brown's first game as a starter. Like our receiving core outside of Lamb, like they needed to develop in that role. At least we finally saw this week that Noah Brown can be that guy. Maybe that wide receiver 3, especially if Gallup misses any time. So
Gallup's going to be a huge get for.
He's going to be awesome.
If Gallup is back to what he needs to be, then Lamb's going to be a lot better. And I mean, Schultz is out for a while now, I think, isn't he? How long is Schultz going to be out for?
Schultz is going to be out for a few weeks. MCL sprain, I believe it was.
Yeah, so he'll probably be back. I mean, MCL sprains aren't usually that bad. They'll probably be back in 2 or 3 games.
When the interesting note I heard regarding Michael Gallup is Jerry Jones basically talked about how important the presence of Gallup is for this offense. And he basically said, like, with Gallup back, we're going to be able to use him in that vertical passing offense. He's going to open up a ton for CeeDee Lamb, and he's going to add an element of the deep ball that we haven't had in these first couple games. Because aside from that deep crosser to Noah Brown a couple times against the Bengals, they haven't had a ton of big plays on offense. Having a guy like Michael Gallup who can play that extra tough super position, play that boundary, being able to come down with those 50-50 balls 30 yards down the field. That's going to open up so much from an offensive standpoint for CeeDee Lamb to get those, 10-yard crossers, take them to the house, yak type of player with CeeDee Lamb. So people aren't going to acknowledge it because they think, oh, well, it's just a wide receiver too. How's that going to affect Lamb? It's going to affect them a lot positively because if Lamb is the only one that a defense has to worry about, then as we've seen from the Cowboys offense, the big plays simply won't be there based off how the defenses are playing against them.
Yeah, and to answer your question earlier, Cole Beasley was officially called up from the practice squad today. So he is going to play. I don't mess with him in like managed leagues, but if you're playing DFS lineups, I think he'll probably be an okay, throw into. He'll probably be dirt cheap in DFS, but he'll probably be highly owned.
I meant to say DFS, but I was going to say if you drafted him like in best ball or whatever, I don't know if you would have like earlier in the season. I think he could be like, a decent role in that offense. Should occupy that spot if I'm not mistaken, because
I think this means Gage isn't going to play. The fact that they brought him up, I think they're probably expecting Gage not to play.
Who's going to be your third receiver if he doesn't play?
It'll be if Julio and Gage are
Perriman
both
and
out,
Miller.
It'll be Perriman, Miller, and Beasley.
Damn.
Which is yikes.
Yeah.
If I were them, I'd fucking split Rashad White out.
Yep. Isaiah Likely. Are we worried about Ramondre yet, or are we buying low? We're buying low. What I've seen thus far.
Was exactly what we wanted to see out of Ramondre. He got, I think it was 58% of the routes last week. Like it was a really high percentage. And Montgomery is on IR, so like he's going to maintain that percentage most likely. Pierre Strong wasn't really involved at all on the third down side of things. They actually used him more on early downs.
Michigan defense struggling thus far, by the way. How are you guys feeling about Dobbins? I traded CH in offseason thinking Dobbins would be more productive waiting patiently. I think he's going to be fine as soon as he's like.
Yeah, I would say when I put out that video talking about buying J.K. Dobbins low, I may have jumped the gun a little bit on when you should have been buying him because you probably could have gotten him maybe even cheaper in like August and July. But I do think if you bought him and CH is not somebody that I think was an overpay for J.K. Dobbins. I would much rather have J.K. Dobbins long term than CH. I think Dobbins should be okay, man. Like we got a guy from a medical standpoint, we have a guy more than 12 months removed from ACL surgery. He had, according to Dr. Jesse Morris, the bone marrow like infusion version of the surgery also, which is why he's back and Gus Edwards isn't right now. And he's also been practicing in full each of the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, by all accounts, he looks healthy. And the Ravens have borderline abandoned the run without him. They're going to get him involved. I don't know if it's going to be, to the tune of like a 60% snap share right off the get-go, but they know he's their best running back. The rest of their running backs stink.
Yep. No, I fully agree there. Also, in terms of Ramondre, he's currently my running back 27 on the week, Jan.
Yeah, I have James. Somebody dropped James Cook in my league, so I'm probably gonna go grab him. I put
Not
Chuba
bad.
Hubbard on my bench because of the McCaffrey ankle scare, but I was like, you know what? Chuba Hubbard's like the classic example too of like
Man.
probably not even the handcuff. Like I think it's like a 50-50 split if McCaffrey went down between him and Deontay Foreman, most likely if that played out that way.
Yep. I agree with that.
Yeah, Drake has been a joke. Yeah, Kenyon Drake has been awful. Like he's never been good, to be
Dude,
honest. But
he is so bad, dude. It's actually unreal. By
yeah,
the
I
way,
think we're going to see probably like a 30-40% snap share J.K. Dobbins this week, but I wouldn't be shocked if like right away he's getting 10 plus carries and like looks the best by far in that backfield. I'm very interested to see how Dobbins looks because he is a guy that I have a lot of in dynasty leagues, and I drafted quite a bit of him in best ball as well at his value in like the 6th, 7th round where he was falling sometimes. Don't have much tight ends, just picked up Brait and Moreau. I know it's gross. Yeah. Brait,
gross.
I guess Brait's not a terrible play this week. I guess there's no receivers out there, but Brait just doesn't look like he's any good anymore. Like that's
he looks complete
you have to
dust.
catch a touchdown. Like he's not going to do anything else.
By the way, too, Brock Bowers took a 75-yard end around to the house.
Brock
Like,
Bowers.
so if he hasn't already gotten the George Kittle comparisons, I expect them to be coming pretty soon.
Yikes.
Yep.
Maryland 10 at Michigan.
Yeah,
right?
I have the game on my second monitor, Jeff.
Jeff's an Ohio State fan though, isn't
Yeah.
he?
That's okay. You can worry about our score against Maryland, but you shouldn't be more worried about our score against you guys last week of the season.
I might throw some cash down on Texas covering 7 points against Texas Tech. I think we could be throttling them this week. I think Texas Tech sucks, man.
Dude. By the way, in terms of Michigan, Ohio State last week of the season, like that game is going to be fucking like electric. Number 3 versus number 4. We finally have a quarterback that can go swing for swing if it's a high scoring game. I'm excited.
Yeah. These wide receivers in the next class are looking terrible. They are not looking good right now. Josh Downs is hurt. JSN was coming off of an injury. I think both of those guys will bounce back. I'm not worried really yet about Jackson Smith and Jigba or about Josh Downs because they've both been hurt. But Keyshawn Boutte and Quentin Johnston, I'm extremely concerned for because they're on the field healthy and they're not doing anything.
Dude, I don't know what it is with Boutte specifically. I know
he's going to be the pick into this class. I already know it. Everybody's going to be drawn to the freshman year. And I'm going to be like, no, red flag galore. This guy did not progress at all from a freshman to a sophomore to a junior. And everyone's going to blame it on the injuries. And I think the guy just might not be good.
I think he's a fucking baller when he's healthy, but you need the production.
I'm going to have to watch a film on him because I haven't watched his film yet. But like still, man, I just don't. That's such a red flag. I talked about it on the wide receivers to target and avoid.
He's
video. Get better after a good freshman season. That is a huge red flag on your profile.
He's very AJ Brownie when you watch him.
Yeah.
You'll see it.
Except AJ Brown was productive all 3 years of college.
Yeah. Oh, Blake Corum, stud. Is JSN playing today?
I don't think he's out. So
now the question is he going to play well? I'm joking.
Yeah, literally.
Marvin Harrison looks like he's him.
Yeah, he does. As a Texas Tech alum, yes, we suck, especially on offense. Bet the house. Yeah, and our defense looks good, which is weird. I've never said that about a Texas defense, but like Overshown and like some of our safeties, man, like they actually look like really, really strong up front and in the back end. So I do like I like Texas's chances to cover that 7 points today.
Dude, you know the knee injury that Taylor Lewan suffered against the Bills? He went down?
Yeah, he went for the rest of the season. I just saw that.
Rest of the season, bro. Fuck.
Yeah,
that's bad. Jeff, you're bound to beat us once every 10 to 20 years. We'll let you have last year. That's okay. But once we start our own streak, then you guys are going to be worried on your behalf. So
yeah, this is an interesting question. Are you ready to answer this yet? I don't think it is. I think the running back class is probably about as good as we talked about, but I think quarterback and wide receiver, no.
From a micro player standpoint, like if expecting I want to draft this specific prospect, I want to take him at this pick, him at this pick, him at that pick. No, I don't think it's going to live up to the hype. However, should that mean that we should be devaluing 2023 first? Absolutely not. The reason being, as we know, rookie hype. As soon as we get closer to that draft,
I want to interrupt you for 1 second because what if the people in your league are not wise to the fact that the class is not playing well right now, and you have 3 2023 firsts on your on your in your war
all
chest,
depends what
and
your
you can
market value
unload them
is.
for the price of the hype that we were promised.
If you can right now, like based off the hype, this might sound a little bit like sketchy because maybe, in most leagues you won't be able to do this, but the type of move I'd be looking for, and it all depends again, if somebody has multiple 2024 ones and is willing to move them,
And I think that class
try
might be
to,
better than 2023.
I would say try to offer a 2023 1 and 2 to get two 2024 ones. Easy, quick profit. People know like, oh, 2023 is going to be a better class than 2024. I want to, mediate my picks. I want to mediate my capital and get a player right off the bat. They might be in that type of mindset thinking, oh, damn, like Bryce Young looks like he's going to be the first pick, or Bijan Robinson looks like he's the best prospects in Saquon. You have a lot of that hype right now. And with how the 2024 class thus far has played, obviously, we know Xavier Worthy's going to be there. Obviously, we know Trayvon Henderson's going to be there at the running back position. Still got guys like Braylon Allen showing out. That quarterback class is looking good. Caleb Williams is looking good. If I'm telling you right now, again, I am biased, so take my word for what it is. But if JJ McCarthy keeps playing the way he has been, he's going to be a first-round NFL draft pick. I'm telling you that right now. And he might be somebody valued as a second right now. So if he pushes up and he gets into that top 5 of that super flex class, that's going to push guys like Brock Bowers down, Marvin Harrison Jr. down. And at that point, like that class realistically could be looking by the end of the season like it's 10 to 12 deep, which is everything what we said about the 2023 class at the end of the 2022 season.
Right. And I'm not as bullish on the 2023 class after the first couple of weeks of college. It's still early. They could still, get back on track. But I would say, especially if you're in a rebuild and you have a bunch of 2023 firsts, try and go buy an elite quarterback. I would say because if you have 6 2023 firsts, and the guy that has for starters Trey Lance and Zach Wilson, because they're out of sight, out of mind right now, or Dak Prescott, you could probably buy them for 1, maybe 2 of these firsts if you need to, and maybe get a piece back or whatever. And
I don't
same
think
goes for like
you.
if you want to buy the superstar quarterbacks, the Justin Herberts, the Josh Allen types, you can always just package a bunch of these ones together before, because I do think this class is going to be underwhelming relative to the hype that they had. Not that I think the class is going to be bad. It's definitely going to be better than last year's class, but I do think we're looking at a big 3 at the top that are the elite assets. It's going to be Stroud, it's going to be Young, it's going to be Bijan, and the rest of the class is going to fill itself out. I think Addison and JSN are going to be great wide receiver prospects. I think the depth of the wide receiver class is a concern. The depth of the running back class is not a concern for me. I think Tucker and Gibbs and Evans and some of these guys are going to be first round caliber rookie picks, but I don't think they're all superstar caliber prospects.
Yep, I agree. In terms of what I was saying,
somebody mentioned Mayer too. Mayer looks outstanding. He's going to be obviously a really high pick too.
Mayer looks really good, but I mean, Brock Bowers looks generational.
Like, and Brock Bowers is going to be like a Hawkinson caliber prospect, most likely.
Yeah, whereas Brock Bowers looks like George Kittle.
Yeah.
In terms of, you mentioned Dak and Lance, I've seen like floating around like deals where Lance is going for a late 2023 first. Dak's going for a little bit of that plus a small piece. If you can package right now a late 2023 first projection, say, somewhere in that 9 to 12 type of projection, and maybe, a guy who's playing well that could help a contender. Let's just say, for instance, if a contender has, Dak, and probably we would want quarterback equity back, you could probably get, 2023 late first, French quarterback that should be like maybe even Jimmy Garoppolo.
Yeah.
Do you think Trey Lance would make more sense? Trey Lance, you could probably flip right now for like a 2023 first Jimmy Garoppolo and get Trey Lance.
Yeah, I offered somebody a 2023 first and second in one of my leagues, and he's also rebuilding, so he's like, I'm just gonna hold on to Lance. Like, but if he was more of like in the contenders mindset where he had Lance on his roster and he needed him to compete, I think he probably would have done that deal. So I think a first and a second is about adequate value for Lance, because he does carry some risk now that he's injured, because his leash might not be quite as long as it once was with the 3 first-round picks invested now that he's been injured and he hasn't started his rookie season. I think he's going to have year 3 to prove himself, which is a tough position for any young quarterback to be in, especially with a guy like Lance who doesn't have a ton of starting experience in the past couple of years. So it's definitely, it lowered his value, his injury, for sure. I don't think we should pretend like his value hasn't changed.
Oh, it definitely has. He went from like being a multiple first caliber player to now like
a 1 and a 2 caliber player.
Yeah, maybe even like
here's the real question: which of the second-year quarterbacks is rated highest now?
Trevor Lawrence.
I think it's probably Lawrence, right? Like
Yeah.
I didn't have Lawrence the highest. I had both Zach Wilson and Trey Lance ahead of him, and I'm not going to lower Zach Wilson because of his injuries. He hasn't changed in my value, but I do think Lawrence has played well enough for me to say that I think Lawrence's value has gone up. At least where I was low on him. Like most people, I think it's about on par with where he's been, but I was low on Lawrence, so he was a guy that I think I need to raise my when we do our dynasty rankings update, probably next week, we'll definitely have all that kind of stuff.
Good question for you. Where do you think? Actually, I can pull this up and ask you a question. So get to a couple of the comments, and I actually want to see how the market has this analyzed right now, because this is a question that I think the market might have flipped.
Yeah. Here. Jared says, is Derrick Henry the biggest bust this year?
It looks like
I wouldn't say yet, but he definitely could be by the end of the year. So I would say if anybody in here has Derrick Henry, I would try and shop the guy on name value. I might wait until after this week because he might have a better game than he had last week, but because it was the Bills front and they were really good against him. But I'm not excited about Derrick Henry the rest of the season.
Where do you think Dak Prescott lands in terms of quarterback market value right now in the dynasty market?
Probably like quarterback 13.
It's quarterback 11. However, Trevor Lawrence is ahead of him.
Yeah, that doesn't shock me. I think the way the Lawrence has played, people are going to have that reaction.
This is the one that's shocking, though.
Justin Fields.
Tua Tagovailoa.
Yeah, no, I ain't there with Tua. If you could flip Tua for you could probably get Zach Wilson in a second at bare minimum for Tua right now. I think people need to be buying Zach Wilson. Let's just put it that way. Because I mean, not that we've seen Zach Wilson play, but his value technically has gone up a little bit because Garrett Wilson is a stud. And
Zach Wilson is behind Kenny Pickett right now in market value,
which is ridiculous.
That makes no sense. Because he got fucking hurt. Kenny Pickett hasn't been able to beat up Mitch Trubisky. Isn't that even more puzzling?
Yeah.
Your first round rookie quarterback, you can't beat out Mitch freaking Trubisky. The market's just a mess right now. I also saw a trade basically on my timeline that somebody traded Tua and a fourth, and they got Dak Prescott and David Bell. And I'm like,
yeah, that's a wild trade.
How has the market gone the way now where Tua, after one very good game, has passed Dak in fucking market value? That makes
Mitch Trubisky once threw 6 touchdowns.
Yeah, let's not show Matt Flynn threw 6 touchdowns.
Tua's looks better. I'll give him that, but we should chill a little bit on Tua Tagovailoa.
You're taking him over a franchise quarterback now. That makes no sense.
Not a chance. We're still a Tua injury or Tua having a couple bad games away from seeing Teddy Bridgewater in this offense. I don't think that outcome is gone now.
Is there a bigger sell-high quarterback in Dynasty right now than Tua Tagovailoa?
No, I don't think so. I do think it is possible that Tua takes a step forward, but I think even if he does, how much higher is his value going to be? Is he going to be are people going to take him over? His absolute ceiling for value is behind Deshaun Watson's and behind Joe Burrow still. And I don't even think he has even remotely comparable ceiling to a Trevor Lawrence's dynasty value, to be honest.
Question I have for you, market value aside, because obviously you're going to play market value no matter what in Dynasty because you don't get locked onto players, period. You want to let the market indicate what you're willing to sell and willing to buy. However, say you can't use market value to your advantage, say you can't use leverage to your advantage. If you had Tua Tagovailoa on your roster right now and somebody came to you and said, listen, I will give you a 2023 first for him straight up, which side are you taking?
A random 2023 first?
We'll say mid to late.
Mid to late, I think I would take Tua. I think I can get more than that. Not because I think he's going to be a superstar. I just think I can get more than that.
But that's what I mean. If you can't use the market to what would you rather have if you can't use market value? You would rather have Tua. Okay.
Yeah.
What about a random 2024 first? It's completely random.
I'll take the 2024 first. If I'm in a full-fledged tear it down rebuild type of team, if I'm in a relatively competitive window, I'd probably take Tua though.
Yep. Okay. That makes sense.
We didn't actually answer that one. I'm in rebuild in one dynasty. Is it worth holding on to someone like AJ Brown, given he's still fairly young? I would say he's probably a guy I would sell if you're in a long-term rebuild. I think AJ Brown's going to have pretty peak value. Because once he turns 26, 27, people are going to start thinking of more as a veteran wide receiver than a young wide receiver, which is kind of where he's thought of now.
Obviously, try to go for as much as you can, but a realistic type of move that you might be able to do is you say you have a random late projected second in the next couple of years. You package AJ Brown in that second, you go after 2 firsts. That's the type of move I'd be looking to do.
Yeah, or you could get like a late, like somebody like a contender wants him. You get like a late 2023 first and like throw in like a Sky Moore, and maybe you throw a third on top of AJ Brown to get that done or something like that. I think that also kind of makes some sense as well.
Yep.
We'll answer a couple more questions here and then we'll probably hop off. Is Mayer still the top tight end in 2023?
Yeah, I think he's.
What?
I would still take the. He says, has he leaped a lot of these receiver practice? I would still take the receivers because I think he'll be good. Don't get me wrong. I think he could be even better than Hawkinson. Like he could probably get to that tight end 4 or 5 type of range, maybe be like a Dallas Goedert, but I don't think he can be like a George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Darren Waller, Travis Kelce type of asset or tight end. And at that point,
I think he can just based because of his age.
That's fair.
Like if you get
I meant like in terms of production.
Pat Fryermuth plus out of Michael Mayer his rookie season, I think he's going to leapfrog most tight ends to be like the consensus tight end 2 or 3 in Dynasty.
I mean, in terms of comparative advantage, like on the field. Like,
oh yeah, for sure. But we're talking, with young prospects, we're usually talking market value with these guys rather than their actual production. And I think Mayer will be consensus top 5, top 6 tight end the second he enters the NFL.
I meant that like I don't think his ceiling is getting up into like 85% of what Kyle Pitts' value
He's probably like a young Zach Ertz type of ceiling.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
And over the wide receiver prospects, I would say I would rather have Addison and JSN no matter what happens probably for the rest of the season. Maybe not no matter what happens, but like for now. But if somebody wants to take Mayer over Boutte, I'm not gonna bat an eye 100%. And especially in tight end premium leagues, which a lot of people play in.
What if I have Murray and Watson plus 2 early 2023 first? Early picks still got value.
I wouldn't be worried about early picks. My concern is the mid to late seconds of 2023 and seconds as well. Yeah, I would say mid to late first is what I'm concerned with. If you have a bunch of firsts that you think are going to be late, I would say try and maybe sell those on name value,
leverage
or like on projected value of the 2023 class. Early picks with Bijan, Stroud, Bryce Young, I'm not worried about those picks at all.
My favorite type of move, again, I mentioned it earlier, is seeing if you can get 2024 picks plus for your mid to late 2023 first right now.
Yeah,
because somebody's going to be willing to do it, especially if they're a contender and they might say, okay, listen, I have my late projected 2024 first and maybe like a Brandon Ayuk type. Yeah, somebody might be giving you a Brandon Ayuk 2024 first for your mid to late 2023 first because they want to get it on the hype of this class.
Yeah, definitely. I would love to see Zach Wilson ball out with all these stars at running back and wide receiver, but I'm nervous for him. I'm nervous for him too, especially given that I've hyped him up for like the last 2 years. And if he sucks, then that's definitely kind of a blemish on me. But I liked him as a prospect. I think he has talent. I think he showed last year that he has ability by beating the number 1 seed Tennessee Titans and showing out against Atlanta. And some of the games that he looked pretty good in. And I was like, you know what? He's a rookie quarterback. They built around him. They built up the offensive line a bit. They got him a stud running back. They got him another stud wide receiver. If we got to project these leaps, right? And so far we've done a good job of that because we projected the leap that Jalen Hurts took, and it looks like he's taking that leap. And I think Zach Wilson is the next guy in line to take that leap because when you build the team properly around a young quarterback and they have ability, which Zach Wilson has, then they can take the step forward. It's not a guarantee, never is with quarterback position, but I do think Zach Wilson's price point is at a point where, because if Zach Wilson does look like that dude in the first game, and he looks like I don't know, the comparison for him, like he looks like as good as Ryan Tannehill was a couple years ago as a passer, then I would say that Zach Wilson's dynasty value immediately jumps to like a top 8 quarterback. And he's behind the Watsons and the Burrows and stuff, but I think he could be the next guy after that is what the ceiling of his dynasty value could be.
He's volatile, don't get me wrong. But right now, there's a chance where if he shows in the next few weeks that he's like a legit player, I still think the market would probably prefer Trevor Lawrence over him, given their preconceived bias, given, he went first, Zach went second. But there's a real possibility that he gets up to where Tua is ranked right now. Tua's quarterback 9 on Keep Trade Cut. Zach Wilson's going to own that spot if he shows up because realistically, if we're looking at, Zach Wilson's a more talented player. The receiving core, while maybe not dynamic like Waddle and Tyreek Hill in the short term, long term, you're going to love those 2 young receivers on their rookie contracts.
Which is basically why Burrow got such a huge boost in his dynasty value also, is because the young projected long-term appeal of the receiving core also kind of applies to that Bengals situation as well. Yeah. So I think Zach Wilson, he could definitely show out, and he's probably going to start next week. I know everybody's like, well, if Joe Flacco beats the Bengals, are they going to keep with Joe Flacco? Like, no, they're not going to do that. They know that Zach Wilson needs to be the starting quarterback. He got every rep in training camp. There was no question in anybody's mind. And people are still trying to peddle the narrative that like Joe Flacco is going to like hold on to the job.
Yeah, well, like, what about that thing like, well, Joe Flacco's currently a better quarterback than Zach Wilson is?
Well,
Like, shut the
I
fuck up.
I don't think so, man. Like, I think
I
Zach Wilson's gonna
agree.
be just fine, yeah.
I
Anyways,
agree with you.
we'll answer this last question, then we'll hop out of here. Daniel Jones in a late 2023 first for Zach Wilson. I have Jones. Yes, this is the type of trade I would use the 2023 hype to do. If you can use a mid to late first to go get Zach Wilson, to go get Trey Lance, go get Dak Prescott, I would do it because I don't think, especially at quarterback, because we're not seeing any of these other tertiary quarterbacks emerge right now. It looked for a half second like Anthony
Anthony,
Richardson could have been that
man.
guy, but that was week 1 or week 0, whatever week it was in the college football season. It looks like Will Levis is like fine. He might have the best chance to be like a fringe first round rookie pick next year. But the quarterback position really all depends on like the combine and the pro days and the senior bowls and stuff when it comes to draft capital. And honestly, we were way off on that last year, right? Because we all thought, Pickett and Willis are probably first round locks, and maybe Corral or Sam Howell sneaks into the first round, and like half of those guys didn't even go until like midday too. So I would say, yeah, if you're in need of a quarterback and you have a lot of 2023 first, I would 100% fire them away for some of these quarterbacks that have more job security than the upcoming class, because I don't think the 2023 quarterback class is going to be anything special outside of the top 2 guys.
Yep, I agree with that. Fluco, that's a nice word for him.
Yeah.
Either way, appreciate you guys for sticking around this last hour. Hopefully, we got through all of your questions. Again, if you have any more questions to Mercer out the rest of the day, of course, every Sunday be prior to 1 p.m. kickoff EST, we are live. So make sure you guys tune in. Make sure you guys get your questions in, and especially again, you patrons, feel free to DM us prior to that, because obviously when we're in the live stream, hundreds of people. So if you want to shoot us a message in Patreon DMs in the morning, we will make sure to get to those before the live stream as well.
Yeah, and our weekly rankings will be updated around 11
Correct.
tomorrow morning as well. For those of you guys that have access to them, if you're watching this after the fact, again, you can join these live streams. We went in depth and pretty much everybody's question in here because there's 10 to 15 people in here, so it's very easy for us to be able to go at a controlled pace. We're not like panicking and trying to fire through as many questions as we possibly can, like we are on the kickoff live streams on Sundays and on Thursday nights and stuff. So if you want to join these, again, patreon.com/fantasy stock exchange. Make sure to check that out. We also have, our weekly rankings available on Patreon. We also have our Dynasty Rankings Manifesto. Going to update that next week with all the new information that we've had from this season so far. And we're going to have our rest of season rankings coming for you guys on Monday as well. We were going to do it today, but we figured, you know what, we'll wait until another week if football has passed as well, and we'll cover our rest of season rankings. We'll probably go like, I think last year we went like we'll probably do like a tier maker or something like that. I think that's the easiest way to do it, because then we can cover like 25 wide receivers really easily, 25 running backs really easy, and then like cornerbacks and tight ends we can maybe briefly touch on as well. So make sure to stay tuned for that. We'll probably have that for you on Monday. Monday is going to be like our flex video type of thing. I did the takeaways last week, but I don't think I'm going to do that every single week. I'll probably do that as takeaways start to develop. I'm not going to go search for 10 takeaways every single week of football, because sometimes there isn't 10.
Yeah, and then obviously, of course, soon enough, we're not exactly sure when, but we will probably have a Dynasty Decisions update within the next couple of weeks. And of course, as you guys being patrons, get your submissions in once we ask for them, because you guys will get full priority to those episodes.
Yeah, for sure. And we have a couple already stashed up in the bank right now. We'll probably get to that at some point. Maybe we'll do that on Saturday of next week or something like that. So again, peace out, guys. Enjoy the games tomorrow. See you Sunday morning.